Hello and welcome to Breathing is Action, a meditative affirmation podcast aimed at reaching teens and adults. But of course, everyone is welcome. I'm your host, Macy. Today is the big launch of the first chapter. Let me just get right into it and tell you guys what this is all about. Breathing is Action offers super simple meditations, which are a combination of breath work, different kinds of breathing, and affirmations. Affirmations, what are they? They are positive things we could say to ourselves and repeat to ourselves. And the idea behind that is a lot of the internal dialogue that we have comes from, society, our upbringing, a whole bunch of messages that we got from outside of ourselves and that we internalize, and they become our internal dialogue. So affirmations are a way to create a positive inner dialogue. The messages that you repeat to yourself, you got to keep an eye on them, make sure that they're healthy and good for our well-being and positive and loving. And the reason that I'm combining it with breath work is because we know now from research that meditation, breathing, these are all amazing things for our nervous systems, for our healing. What I'm trying to achieve with bringing the breath work alongside the affirmations is that we experience different emotions and they affect our breathing. And so if we're going to have different affirmations and things and that brings up emotions, it's possible. There's going to be different breathing techniques for different circumstances. And it's not just, the 3 seconds in, 4-second exhales, or, it's going to require different strategies for different situations. The idea behind Breathing is Action is that the different meditations, they speak on the growing emotional development of a human being. So the meditations are going to follow, the psychological emotional development throughout a lifetime. So you're going to start super simple, affirmations about, the importance of play when you're a kid and having fun, being safe, feeling seen and heard, and meditations that go throughout the lifetime. So, loving your body, self-expression, self-exploration, all the way to more like adult type things, which is like integrity, honesty, looking at different perspectives, individuation, ruminating, some of the coping skills we do when we grow up. So all of these meditations and affirmations, they're going to tackle those themes, and they're going to require different breath works. So that's the idea of the meditations for Breathing is Action. All right, so how do we use these meditations? They are super simple. So you're going to sit down, you're going to quiet your space, and you can listen to them. They are short. They're about 5 minutes each. And basically in that sense, you can, if you want to stack them one after another, you get to decide if your meditation is 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes. It's up to you. It's entirely customizable. And because the themes, over time, we're going to build all these themes and stuff like that. And so they're going to be relevant to, what happens in a lifetime. So that can also be customizable. The messaging of the meditation can be customizable. And I can give you an example for that. So if you're a teen, your best friend decides to move out of town and, they move away and you're really sad. So it might help to have some meditations that tackle being sad, loneliness, loss, grief. Maybe you want to also hear about confidence, asking for help, all these things could be stacked together so that you have a messaging that is right for you for what you're going through at that time. And you can change them as you go through different stages in your life. That's in terms of the meditation, but I'm also including long form podcast episodes that sort of describe the chapters, and each chapter is going to have a certain amount of meditations and a long form episode to kind of explain things, maybe explain why those themes are grouped together, how to get the best out of them, because like the affirmations and the breathing are great, but sometimes it helps to have a bit more food for thought on a concept. So not only the long form podcast episodes, but also discussion episodes. I'm going to invite people to come on and we'll talk about some things that's relevant to the chapter. And also I love writing. So I'm going to write some articles, some blog posts, and that will also be on the website and included on social media and stuff like that. So that's just to get more food for thought, more self-exploration, and some people like listening to podcasts, some people like the meditation, some people are going to want to read. There's all kinds of ways that people gather information. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of everything for everyone. And, I'm very passionate about this. So I love writing. I love recording, voice acting, all that kind of stuff. I love talking with people, discussions, exploration between people and all those kind of things. So I think it's good to have all this content and resources available to people at all times. And it's on the internet, so it's reachable to basically anyone who has internet, but it can be around the world. Again, because I'm aiming for teens or, just making it relevant for everyone as much as possible. The language, I'm really trying to keep it reachable to as many people as possible. So regardless of age, regardless of culture or gender or whatever, I really want to keep it open to all. So, yeah. So what is the goal for Breathing is Action? What are my goals? I am trying to equip the younger generation specifically, but of course everyone. I'm trying to equip everyone with sort of like autonomy over their emotional regulation. I want to foster like a deeper understanding of the self for all. I'm trying to help people understand themselves. I want to be there for people as they go through life's obstacles. I'm trying to bridge the gap between knowledge and experience. So one thing I think about society that's great right now, the internet and all this information that we have, there's accessibility for everyone. We're all connected. And I think that that's fantastic. But what happens right now is that we have so much knowledge out there. We logically know so much, but I'm not sure how much we understand emotionally everything that we're learning online. So logically, we know a lot, but do we really feel it in our hearts kind of thing? So an example would be like, I have an issue believing in myself. And I know that I'm supposed to build confidence, I'm supposed to and build that up within myself. But somehow it's hard for me to logically know that. But how do I actually become confident? How do I practice being confident? How do I get there? So I know to believe in myself, I need to be confident. I don't know how to get there. I don't know what it feels like. It's so foreign to me. There's not much guidance on how to get there, but I logically know I'm supposed to be confident. I will feel much better about believing in myself if that's the case. So how do I feel it in my heart? How do I experience confidence? And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bridge the gaps in between what we know in our heads and versus what we know in our hearts. So, another goal for this podcast is to provide a form of long distance co-regulation. I'm trying to be a safe someone for people. I'm trying to be a good co-regulator. I'm trying to show that connection is still possible, even if it's, the person's not in the room, it's not happening in real time, but there's still a connection possible. I think it's hard, it's hard for a lot of people sometimes to feel connection, because I think we think it only happens, in real time with someone else validating us. But connection happens all the time, everywhere. Anytime you're loving a song, anytime you're enjoying the sun beaming on your face, that enjoyment that you're feeling, that is a connection. Relief, maybe the laughter, like that's why we love movies, that's why we love comedians. These are connections that we're feeling without actually like knowing them or necessarily being in the same room as them. And it's the same thing with this meditation. It's basically trying to form a co-regulation connection regardless time, space. Whoever connects to the messaging or whatever, I'm just reaching it out there so that if someone needs to reach back, then there you go. And of course, the goal is to make sure that the content is relevant and attractive to as many people as possible, especially teens. I think it's an impossible task to make meditation cool and exciting and, but I really think, especially for teens who are in the process of going from, they're moving on from childhood, which is mainly, a child is co-regulating with the parent. The child relies on the parent to regulate their emotions, for it to be modeled to them. And till adulthood, teens move to adulthood, which is full on, you're expected to self-regulate. You're an adult, you have to take care of yourself. And so teens have this hard task, this sort of limbo area where they're still very much co-regulating, and adults co-regulate too, absolutely, but there's more of an expectation to self-regulate. But so teens are in this mucky area where they're co-regulating with someone else, and at the same time they're trying to self-regulate, they're trying to get there. It's very difficult, it's very confusing, and you really need good guidance on that. You really need like a good guide, a good support system, a good co-regulation model to get you to that self-regulation space in your heart. So that's a big task for teens. So I think, my attempt at making it reachable and, using a vocabulary that is easy for everyone to relate to. Sometimes meditation's very woo-woo spiritual, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a place for that. There's people for that, absolutely. And then, the psychology field, it's sort of like gatekeeping a little bit. It's kind of like it's meant for professionals and scientists, and it's science, and, it forgets a little bit what it's like when you're trying to learn the concepts and you're not quite there yet. You're still in the thick of things. You're still emotional. The way they talk about it sometimes is like really science-based. It's hard to relate to. So I'm just trying to bridge, again, that gap in between so high up in the clouds, spiritual, versus too low to the ground, science, like somewhere in between where you're sort of like, I don't even know what that space would be, but just, just trying to make it accessible to as many people as possible. The reason why I specify teens, because I do want it to be for everyone. That's a big, important aspect to this. However, I do like to, I really do want the marketing to be aimed for teens, because the younger that we can normalize breathing through our emotions, the younger we start making sense to ourselves, the earlier we start relating to ourselves in a caring way. That's going to mean that it's going to be even earlier that we can make better choices for coping. Coping mechanisms, choosing ones that are better for our well-being, better for our community. And the earlier we start doing that, we reduce opportunities of repeating patterns of pain and trauma and, having that affect others around us. And the earlier we stop those opportunities for pain, the earlier we stop cycles of unnecessary trauma, complex trauma or big trauma. We reduce those significantly the earlier we plant seeds in our lives to emotionally regulate, make better choices. And I think that that's good for all of humankind, really. So, in that sense, if we think about it that way, breathing really is taking action. It really is affirming change in the world. Breathing is not a passive thing that's just for spiritual people or just for adults or just for this kind of people or that kind of people. Like, breathing meditation is good for all humankind. And I think, it'd be really good to start changing things up and giving people autonomy over their emotional regulation and development. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Macy. My full name, Macy Leblanc-Smith. But just for the sake of the podcast, I'm just going to introduce myself as Macy, short and sweet, sort of like Madonna, Macy, And so I am from Canada. I am from the French part of Canada, the Poutine part of Canada. And I would say that I was born socially anxious. I don't remember a time where being around people was comfortable. I have amazing friends. I have amazing friends, but it was it was work to get there, kind of thing. Like, I was so intimidated by social interactions in elementary school. Like, yes, bullying, of course. I had really difficulty making friends. If I did make a friend, I couldn't keep them very long because I was so emotional. I took everything so personal. I was very fragile emotionally. It was pretty painful. That was a thing. But, we were a big family. I relied on my siblings quite a bit for that, but they were my best friends. I loved them dearly. Thank God for them. It wasn't until high school that I miraculously was able to make friends. First year in high school, I was able to make a friend. It was the light at the end of the tunnel for me. Then I grew up a bit. I managed to make myself, we were like a decent group of friends, and they were so important to me. They were life-changing people that many of which I'm still friends with today. They know who they are. They know who they are. They're fantastic. I love them. And through them, I was able to quietly rebel. We were a little naughty sometimes. In Canada, in the French part of Canada, we have cégep. So the cégep is before you go, so in between high school and university, there's like this liminal space of education where you are learning to get ready for university, basically. And this is the time where education is really not expensive, go F around, go party, it's not a serious time. And I think that that's a great way to grow up, because going straight to university would have been disastrous for me, because I really did need like this sort of limbo where I was able to focus on socializing, getting into relationships for the first time kind of thing. And, during this time, it was a bit rough. I will say I have some trauma there because it's so personal. I don't know how much I'll get into that, but I do want to be transparent. I just don't want, there's still some privacy there that I want. But I do want to be able to talk about stuff because life happens. Life happens, and it's good to talk about it. Maybe I'll get into some of the stuff I went through. But really, the message I want to take home with that is you always pick yourself up after. I was able to always get back on track. And, I was able to pinpoint what my values were and to, get back on track and take care of myself. So, once I finished Cégep, I was able to go into my career. So after I got my college certificate in graphic design, I was able to move to the big city and become a work in production of advertisements online. I met some amazing people here. It was really, I think it's more the moral aspect that I wasn't jiving with, let's just say, because it was a little tough to make advertisements for things that I really didn't care about. I don't know if everyone feels bad about pushing beer commercials or cars or and I think the thing that really took the cake was the pharmaceuticals. Yeah, I really had an ethical problem with the work that I was doing. And, I thought I was going in there to use my art, to use my talents, my creativity. And I ended up feeling like I was selling myself out a bit. There was a huge grind culture in that workforce that I was not accustomed to. I was pretty easygoing. I was hard on myself, but I was easygoing at the same time. It was it's a little strange, but I really went into perfectionist mode. I really went into grind culture, work hard, play hard. I lost myself a little bit, and I could see that happening because I was starting to get depressed. I was going through a breakup at the time, and it was just, I saw myself really having difficulty waking up in the morning and doing what I was doing, going to work, finding meaning, finding like it was my purpose. I remember crying almost every morning for a couple of months, really having difficulty coping, finding unhealthy ways of coping. I was functional, but barely, until a certain point where I did have a burnout. I took some time to kind of reevaluate what I wanted to do. And seeing myself struggle, I thought, well, I'll go back to school. I'll go in university and study psychology. And I can help other people. I can help myself. I can help other people. But by then, I had sort of lost that part of myself that was that understood that life is supposed to be fun. The same patterns came into play. I was a perfectionist. I was... it couldn't just be a normal bachelor's in psychology. It had to be a specialization or honors in psychology, and I had to get A+ grades. And, my parents aren't asking any of this of me. I'm a full-grown adult. Still, I'm treating this like a test to prove that I'm worthy, or I'm not quite sure. But anyway, another burnout ensued. And I realized then, I can blame the school system, work hard, the marketing and advertisement industry. I can blame it on the grind culture. I can do that, and yes, there is some, for sure there's things to change in that, but I'm contributing to this problem. I'm not choosing to, go back to my roots and what are my actual values about this? I value rest. I value play. I value purpose, meaning, and being authentic. And I'm performing and I'm working hard. I'm ignoring my needs. I'm trying to sound smart. Maybe if I can convince people I'm smart, maybe I'll be good enough, you know? So I'm realizing, you know, I'm the problem. And, you know, I'm going to school and I'm, you know, trying meditation. I'm getting into yoga and that's really good too. But nonetheless, you know, I see myself going towards another burnout. So I'm like, well, God, what do I do? You know, and that's when I really started taking healing seriously. I simplified my life. You know, I just did what I needed to do. The rest was focused on healing because I wanted to start a family and I did not see myself being capable to do that. And, you know, I'm in my 30s. I don't feel like an adult still. I feel like I'm a child in an adult's body. I can't cope with life. You know, something had to change. So this is when I really started exploring, and I was taking all the stuff I had learned in university. Like I was on my last year at university, and when I dropped out, but I had gathered quite a bit of information just from, I think everyone should go to study psychology at a university level. I think it is just amazing. The information that you learn, it's ridiculous. It's so good. And so, you know, I'm taking all that stuff. I'm really getting into therapy. I'm really getting into healing a lot more. Like I'm trying spiritual stuff. I'm learning about Buddhism. I'm, you know, getting as much knowledge as I possibly can from all these different modalities. Like the sky's the limit. Gimme, gimme, gimme. I'm reading books. I'm researching online. And at this point, especially on Instagram, that was really good for me. There's so many psychologists giving out free content, you know, and I'm coupling that with actual therapy. And, you know, I'm seeing things get better. I'm having a hard time with traditional talk therapy because you know, there was something missing. There's still an ingredient there that I couldn't quite put my finger on. And so I'm doing good. I'm getting some skills. I can still see I'm struggling with a lot of stuff, but you know what? I'm doing pretty good. I can start a family. Like I'm confident that like I could be a good mom. I believe in myself, you know, stuff like that. Like going to the grocery store doesn't take me 3 days to, you know, get the courage to go out. Like, you know, maybe I can't make phone calls still, but like, you know, the husband can take care of that. So I get pregnant and, you know, with the hormones and everything, like it is just impossible to, like I regressed so bad. And it's like all of the therapy I did was gone. The pregnancy hormones just set me back so much. But what it did is that it highlighted just how bad my anxiety was. And we figured out that actually I had an undiagnosed anxiety disorder probably my entire life. Just my nervous system was so activated that, you know, something needed to change, especially for the health of the baby. You know, so we explore some things. You know, I tried medication. That was a big game changer. I had never experienced what a normal or a more normal nervous system, what that felt like. I had been activated my entire life. I was in survival mode my entire life, and I didn't know it was my normal. I had no idea. I thought everyone felt like that about life. So I was able to experience a more regulated nervous system, and it was like shocking to me. But I am not, like, I believe in pharmaceuticals. I do. But it's for me, it's not something that I want to do for the rest of my life. I understand there are some people that should be doing that, but I'm, you know, just afraid of addictiveness or relying on things. I'm not like a natural healer kind of thing, but the least amount of unnaturalness, or I don't know how to say it. I don't want to offend anyone. But I just didn't want to have medication for forever on that. I really wanted to have autonomy over my regulation and being in my skin. And I wanted to be who I am, exactly how I am, and learn to accept myself. But I could see that like I was going to need a buttload of skills if I wanted to get off medication, because I needed to be able to regulate without that extra help. There was some trial and error. This is like my journey, but do not follow. You follow the doctors. You follow the psychologists, psychiatrists. I'm weary of even talking about it, because you have to trust the professionals on this. But we did have some trial and error. I tried to get off of it, and I saw that I hadn't learned enough skills yet, so I went back on. And there's a little bit of a back and forth until eventually one day I realized, I felt pretty good and getting off the medication, and things were manageable. And, I'm a new mom, and there's a lot of ups and downs, and I'm emotional again, the same way that I was before, but I was able to really practice those skills that I learned while on medication in order to keep, bring myself back to a decent place. And it years of effort, but I pulled it off. And then, of course, COVID happened. During that time of medication and nervous system healing, the world shut down, and I basically, we stayed home. And I had already simplified my life quite a bit, so there was nowhere to go and nothing to do. Again, COVID was horrible and disastrous for so many people. But for me, it was a time of getting to my core again, going back to my roots. I saw that I had been chasing extrovertedness because I thought that was a good way to be. That's how the world is made for extroverts in a sense. And I had always looked down upon introversion or, quiet, shy people because I was that and I didn't like myself. I really started to see, hey, being an introvert is sort of like my superpower, because look how great I feel now. And when I do go see people or when I do talk to people, COVID made it so that I was yearning to go see people. I wanted to reach out, but on my own terms, and and it wasn't too often. I had a lot of time in solitude, and the time in solitude felt so good that reaching out to people I wanted to. I wasn't forcing myself to be a certain way. So COVID really helped me to see myself more realistically and to not judge that. I've gotten all this knowledge. I'm seeing the power of my nervous system, and I'm still not quite okay with my talk therapy. And so I'm looking, and I'm learning about trauma-informed psychology and how it's not just about big T trauma like car accidents or war or, these huge atrocities that happen in the world. But I'm also learning about complex trauma and how sort of that grinds, it's sort of like a low grade trauma that happens to your nervous system over a long period of time, and it grinds away at it. And you develop sort of PTSD-like symptoms, very similar. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, trauma-informed therapy would probably do really good for me, actually. And so, and because I was sort of tired of talking about stuff, I wanted to get back to my art. When I was being a graphic designer, that was, I went into that because it was art. So if I could combine my love for psychology and my love for art, so I got into trauma-informed art therapy. And, usually that's for kids. Not always, but a big focus of art therapy is for kids. So I was, reluctant, but I went for it. And it was the best decision of my life. It was so good. In a year's time, the change was just, I had found someone to co-regulate with me that was super empathetic. I never felt judged. She brought me, she would always, bring me up, and I felt like she believed me. I never felt like she doubted me. So it just did wonders for my confidence and my healing. And, I still see her till today. I literally don't see a future where she's not there. I don't see her as often as I did before it was on like weekly basis. Like I needed her, but, spread my wings a bit. I'm able to, after a couple of years, flying on my own a little bit, but she's always there. She's a great source of support. She's amazing. It just made everything so clear in terms of our needs as humans for co-regulation, the impact of our nervous system, that we all go through complex trauma. As much as I'm trying to be a great mom, I can see that I make mistakes. I can see that I have an impact and effect on him, and sometimes I make the wrong choice. It happens more than I want to admit it. I'm human, just like everyone else. And if everyone else is human, then we all have complex trauma. We get traumatized in community, but we also heal in community. I was combining all of those with giving myself rest, slow living principles, and just an appreciation for softness. And instead of that hard, tough love, but just an appreciation for having space for someone and feeling safe. Safety was so important. For this podcast and for these meditations, I want to make it clear, I am not an expert. I am not a meditation guru. I am not a psychologist. I don't have a license. This is just me, a person, a mother, a wife, partner, friend, daughter. I'm just being me. I have experience in my life. I'm sharing my experiences. I'm sharing my knowledge. I'm sharing my wisdom. I'm trying to be a good co-regulator. I'm trying to be a helpful human on this earth. And that is what I'm offering through this podcast, through the blog post, through the meditations, everything. I'm just putting myself out there. But I know that I am not an expert. I'm an expert at my life and my experiences. I am not an expert on anyone else's life or anyone else's experience. And so anything I talk about, anything in the meditations, if it doesn't jive with you, if it doesn't feel right for you, listen to that. Take what does feel right and leave what doesn't. If you don't like something, just throw it out the window. I'm not going to take it badly. Again, I'm just sharing what I have gone through. It's specific to my experiences. It's specific to me. And so it's not going to apply to everyone. And I know that, and I don't expect it to. Yeah, just trying to make sure everyone understands that, again, I'm not an expert. I'm just some woman on the internet trying to make her own little difference in her own little community. And, and I welcome anyone that, that my content resonates with. I welcome anyone who appreciates the co-regulating efforts. I don't pretend to know what you're going through. I don't pretend to know who you are and what's best for you. You got to pick and choose. I'm still going to put my message out there, but you have to go and find what's right for you. That's your job. And my job is just to share my experiences. And, whoever that resonates with, that's going to be my community. And that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be more than that. I am really excited to see where this project goes. It is with the utmost excitement and my greatest wish that it inspires others to share their own experiences, to share their healing, to use their talents, to use technology for the betterment of humankind, to have their own creative ways of modeling co-regulation, modeling healing, having fun, creating connections, just creating for the fun of it. If we can not prioritize financial gains, not prioritize material investments or personal gain, but to instead prioritize connection, co-regulation, love, kindness, and healing together in community, that is a society I want to be a part of. That is a humankind that I see just a vast potential. So with that being said, I'm going to get into the theme of the first chapter. The title of the first chapter is Emergency Emotional First Aid Kit. Basically, the first chapter doesn't really follow necessarily like emotional development. The first chapter really is just like getting you to the hospital in terms of affirmations and breath work. You know, if we need something in an emergency, like this is where it starts. My attempt at life-saving emotional attunement. So the first meditation is on self-love because that is the building blocks to well-being. You know, in a perfect world, every single human is surrounded by love and acceptance and validation. And oh, wouldn't that be a beautiful world? That is a perfect world. But that is not the world we live in, unfortunately. There's a lot of kids out there that they aren't surrounded by love, as heartbreaking as that is. Sometimes you gotta create it for yourself. Sometimes that's not always done in the best way, and we create coping mechanisms that look like self-love and that we sort of like confuse for self-love, and we think it's confidence and stuff, but true self-love is very important. So every single person on this planet was born an innocent child deserving of unconditional love. I specify unconditional because that to me means we have 100% certainty that we are good people, that we are worthy, and that we're important. There's a sort of misunderstanding that as being very soft. And that it breeds, you know, kids that are spoiled and stuff like that. But competition, jealousy, a sense of superiority, being vain, selfish, that's all born from not being connected to our innate goodness. Someone who is competitive, overly competitive, so there's nothing wrong with being competitive, but being overly competitive, being jealousy and acting from a place of jealousy, from, you know, feeling inferior, trying to be superior over others. That is someone trying to convince themselves and others that they are good and worthy because they don't actually believe it. Someone that looks and feels and believes that they are good people inside and truly believes it in their hearts, that looks and feels very different. Someone that sees the good in others, that feels very different than someone who's trying to get a leg up on others or to be the best. You know, and another important thing about self-love being unconditional is that we are human. We make mistakes. That's inevitable. You can't escape that. And the mistakes that we make from time to time, they don't define us. They do not define us. What does define us is how we learn from them or how we don't learn from our mistakes. That is what determines someone's strength of character and who they are. But if we know that we are accountable, we see ourselves realistically, we love ourselves unconditionally, we forgive ourselves, and we choose to do better and learn to do better and take actual actions to not repeat the patterns of pain, that is unconditional self-love. It's not never making a mistake. It's not being perfect. You know, and I have to ask myself, like, how do I experience self-love? So in terms of my body, self-love, I feel that in my heart, it is a super warm feeling. It is light. It is freeing. I feel expansive. I don't feel small. I don't feel tight. I feel, it's a beautiful, grand feeling. Many moments of self-love that, like true unconditional self-love that I have felt, they are often accompanied by tears, tears of happiness, especially for anyone like that can relate to my experience. You know, a lifetime of thinking I'm bad, a lifetime of thinking I suck, and that I've got nothing to contribute to the world, and I'm broken. When you feel unconditional self-love, you can't help but cry. It's just such a relief for the heart. And, you know, I experience being proud of myself the same way that like an ideal parent, like the perfect parent that could do no wrong, this fictitious parent, but the same way that an ideal parent would love and be proud of their kid, I can feel that for myself, to myself, from myself, proud of myself. It feels so good that the tears just come. It's a beautiful moment. In those moments, you're able to see your efforts. You're able to see, yes, you make mistakes. Yes, like you make mistakes, but you see yourself trying to do better, choosing to do better. You also see your good intentions. You're encouraging yourself to keep going in that direction. These moments of unconditional self-love are just beautiful. Something that you can practice, because self-love, you can practice it. It's not always present. And even if you do reach it, it's not always present, right? It comes and goes. That's normal too. But there are things you can do to practice. And that would be to actively look for the little moments where you are proud of yourself. So we're not thinking about being proud of ourselves for big achievements, although that's fun too. That's great. That's awesome. But I'm speaking more to the little moments where, you do a nice deed, or you make a good change, or you avoided a temptation that you that's hard for you to avoid that temptation. Moments where you've chosen your well-being above ignoring your needs. These are the moments that you are proud of, the moments where you are noticing the sun on your skin, or how beautiful a blossom in a tree is, or being proud of yourself for just being in the moment and making some good choices for yourself. Those are the moments to be really proud of yourself, and you can practice noticing that a little bit more. You can practice hugging yourself when you're sad, either physically hugging yourself or visualizing it in your head, coming in to swoop in and hug yourself when you're crumbling. That's an act of self-love. Listening to your emotions and really caring about your feelings, like they're 100% important. And being able to give advice to yourself. This is something else we can practice, giving advice to yourself the way you would a friend. So instead of the tough love where you're just hard on yourself, but to really give yourself some soft moments of caring and advice and understanding. Practice validating yourself, validating your emotions, validating your experience, validating your perspective. These are all ways to practice self-love. Giving yourself rest, giving yourself permission to be imperfect, but seeing your efforts. These are all ways we can practice self-love. There's two episodes two meditations in the first chapter. Other than self-love, we have navigating anger. That's one, and another one. The third meditation is sadness. So these are the most common negative emotions. They're some of the hardest, and the meditations are there to normalize these emotions because everybody gets them and they are not bad. It's to show that all emotions are temporary. We don't recognize the amount of relief we are going to feel after allowing the emotions to be inside of us. The amount of relief that I have felt after a big ugly cry, like just the worst, huge cries where I let it all out. The amount of relief after is like indescribable. It's very nice. Again, because emotions are not good or bad. They just are. I'll tell you what, there's some pleasant and unpleasant ones. That's for sure. That's very true. But they are not, there's no moral value to them. You're not a better person for being happy all the time. You are not a bad person for feeling anger or for being sad or depressed. It's just not the case. It's more pleasant to be happy. I think that's why we chase that. It's more pleasant. but all emotions have value, and there's a big difference between actions and emotions. Being sad is not an action. If I am mad and I lash out at someone and call them names, calling them names is the action. But being anger, that's the emotion. That's valid. Every emotion is valid. But we are still responsible for our behavior, for our actions. And that's where I think people get things a little confused, because they think, well, I'm angry, therefore I can be mean. And no, you can be angry, but you're responsible for what you do while you're angry. Emotions, really, they're just information. They're your body and your soul basically asking for needs to be met. Often, sadness is your body's way of asking for rest. What do you do when you get sad? You want to hole up in your blankets and shut yourself off, and it's not the time to start building a new shed or something. I don't know, but it's time to rest. Anger, that's your body's way, your soul's way of asking, like, I need change. I'm ready for action. I want to protect myself or others. Something is not jiving with my values. I feel violated in some way. So this is just information that we can tap into if we really get curious about what the emotion is trying to say. So again, if I have another example, like someone is rude to me and I get angry, the messaging behind that is, I know I deserve to be treated well, to be talked to with respect. I know that. That is pretty confident, actually. I don't like someone talking to me in a disrespectful way. But if I lash out, the action that I decide to do, that's what I'm responsible for. So, do I choose to walk away? Do I choose to explain myself to them, how it makes me feel to be talked to like that? Do I attack them back? Again, emotions are just information. They are not an excuse for bad behavior. It's just valuable information about ourselves. And if an emotion is showing up, it's showing up for a reason. It's important. Emotions have a purpose. It's not useless to look at them, but it's so hard to look at them sometimes, but it's not useless. Very purposeful to take a look at them and to see what they're trying to say. Emotions, they can teach us about ourselves. They teach us about what we value. If I go back to my life story, like I didn't feel I had a purpose in advertisement. It wasn't jiving with my morals. That was a big indicator. Like the thing that I do with my life, it has to be aligned with my morals and values. And if we're able to pay attention to our emotions, it gives us the freedom to choose the behavior that does align with our values. Getting lost in the emotion and just reacting from an emotional place, like there's not much freedom in that. There's not much acting out of a place of autonomy. You're sort of just a slave to your emotions at that point. So, it is valuable information, but we can be responsible about that and make sure that we're aligning ourselves with our values and that our actions reflect that. But, again, emotions, they're letting us know how we experience what we're going through. And it is not easy, again, especially like the tough ones. It's so easy to look at happiness, right? That's like easy peasy. The unpleasant ones, anger, sadness, not easy to look at those. Very unpleasant. So, we're not expecting perfection here. No one is a perfect guru. If you're living in a city, if you have kids, if you're interacting online, if you know what's going on at that part of the world, reading the news, just life comes with a whole bunch of experiences. And the more open to those experiences, the more you're going to feel stuff. The more things you see, the more it's going to make you feel things. It's just how it is. Only the monks living in solitude in a mountain somewhere who don't have kids and live a life of celibacy, maybe they're going to be super calm. Again, that's not the goal, to be a monk in a mountain somewhere. And that's a good goal to have if that's your goal. But if that's not your goal, then practicing looking at them, but understanding that you're not going to be a perfect guru monk. You're not going to be this angel on earth. You're a human being. Again, we're just learning, right? We're just learning from them. And I talk a lot about this stuff, like emotional regulation, because I have problems with that. I have a dysregulated nervous system. I mean, it's a lot better now, but once upon a time, like I still feel like if I raise my voice or someone sees me angry or dysregulated, it's extremely shameful for me still. I don't give myself permission to be human a lot of the time. It's very hard for me. So it's a practice. It's a journey. I have to remind myself no one's expecting me to be perfect. I don't want to put that weight on myself that I'm expected to be perfect and emotionless and self-regulated 100% of the time. That's not fair to do that to myself. And the fourth meditation in the first chapter is resilience. And this is an attempt at giving people a sense of a wider perspective and to reach out to the big picture. It is so easy, especially as a teenager, to not be able to imagine how things could get better down the line. Like, our world feels like it's the center, and it's just so difficult to picture outside of that, or down the line, years from now, how could things be better? Like, it's inconceivable. And for those of us who got out and got through the tough times, and it's a bit easier to see how things make more sense once you're out of it. It's easier to see things do get better, or to make sense of things, to connect the dots and be like, okay, that happened because that, thank God for that though, because that really helped. And, that was really tough, but this other thing happened and now it all makes a lot more sense to me. And like that is so hard to do when you're in the thick of it. And, I totally know, I know very well a life without hope, like how brutal that is. It is excruciatingly hard. And, having a bigger picture of things, not being so focused on where you are in this moment, but to be able to expand the perspective and view things outside the box a little bit, that it does help. It takes a long time, it takes a lot of practice to, try and connect the dots, to envision how things could be different, to hope for more, to strive for better, and to keep trying. Like, these are things that we can practice doing. Is we can practice picking ourselves up when we're down. Like, we are our own sources of strength. We are our best cheerleaders. And if you don't have friends or you don't have a support system, like, it's, and it's hard, but it is important to be that for ourselves, and we can practice being that for ourselves. Again, it's not always going to be perfect, but as many little increments as possible. We practice following our hearts, following what feels true, what feels loving, and what feels kind. We practice following what our values are, we practice listening to what our values are, figuring out what it is that we really care about, and to practice going in that direction more and more. We can practice imagining how things can be different, how things can get better, being open to, guidance from people we respect and have earned our trust, and ideas that align with us, to just be open to how things could be different. That's it. We can practice sort of that blind trust that we have a purpose, that we have awesome things to contribute. As confusing and complex as it is sometimes, understanding and believing and having faith in that, our small contributions, they make a difference to the collective of the world. Really believing in that. Seeing if you can practice believing in that. The specific goals of the first chapter are to validate feelings, normalize emotions, to create loving, positive beliefs about ourselves, and to give us a sense that we have a place in this world and we can create amazing things that have a purpose, that have a goal, that contribute to the world and give us a sense of meaning. Not give our sense of meaning, but can create things from our sense of meaning to help us be our own sources of strength and authority over our lives as well, to spread joy and love and expand our highest excitements. And to give hope to those who really need it. That is basically the first chapter, Emotional First Aid Kit for anyone going through those hard friggin' times and they need someone to be there. They need to know that they're good individuals. They need to, be reassured that they are good people who have value, who are worthwhile, who are important. So with that, let's breathe together and be the change that we want to see in the world. To everyone out there, I see you, I appreciate you, and I hope that this serves you. This episode and all the meditations in the chapter are entirely self-produced. But of course, I give thanks to all my friends and family who contribute their help and have done so much in order to shape it into what it is today and its ongoing production over time. I hope you guys like Emotional First Aid Kit, the first chapter of Breathing is Action, a meditative affirmation podcast for teens and adults, for everyone, everywhere. I welcome comments and feedback always. Breathing is Action can be found on Instagram at Breathing is Action. We are on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. We also have a website, breathingisaction.com. So join the community on Facebook as well. That's also something you can do. So I thank you for listening. Millions of hugs to all of you.